Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. In this video, I will walk you through how we can use calendar control from PNP React Control Library to create an interactive calendar experience that is connected to SharePoint list. This is going to be creating a modern experience when you are building your custom SPFX solution and you want to give user an ability to see the events from your SharePoint list in a modern calendar data which is available. If you are new to PNP React control library which is available, I would recommend one of the video which I will put it in the description, which is introduction to PNP React control library on how we can use PNP React control library to basically fast develop our SPFX based solution, because there are so many controls which are available, and this video is one of the series of exploring one of the control and connecting it to SharePoint list and passing the required custom object to that control to render our custom events into the calendar experience. Now, if you go to the documentation of the React calendar control, you would see there is a very good explanation of different kind of UI which is available. So you would see that this is what all the features which would be available on when you are going to integrate it. First and foremost thing is we need to install a PNP React control library, and then we need to import the modules, and then there are some properties which are available which we can basically use to use to customize that particular React control library. There are also some events through which we would be able to do our custom function or execute our custom function whenever some things change. In this example, for example, if you wanted to do something in your code whenever there is a month change which happens, if there is a day change which happens, if there's a week change which happens, on previous and next are more or less the buttons when navigating to previous period and next period. And then there is also a view change where it will be triggered whenever the view changes. On day slot click is when you would be able to override or do something whenever there is a day clicked on that particular slot which is available. Now, one thing which is important here is the event object. Now, why this is important is that when we are going to use the control, right, to pass what we need to render within that calendar control is the event object, and this is what is important. So there is an event object which is available through which we need to create this kind of object, and then by passing the array of all the events, calendar control will automatically take care of rendering the events into our calendar. We will go a bit in detail about this in some time, and then the other things are all the other events which are available. Now, for us, why this is important is because this is a specific format in which, and where a specific interface which is given by the calendar control, we need to make sure that the object which we are giving to the calendar control is basically in this format, and it's an array of the events which is available. And if you look at the description, it is typically how it's supposed to be. It should have a unique ID of the event, title of the event, start date, end date. If it is a full day event, who are the attendees of the event, what is the category of the event, what is the description, location, and all of that, whether the current user is an event organizer or not, that kind of thing. And then also there are some other properties like whether you wanted to enable on hover, whether what would be the image URL of the event related, what would be the web links, colors, background color, etc. So this way you would be able to customize the control, wherein if you wanted to, for example, show a different color for a particular event depending on a different category, etc., then you would be able to do it. And one more thing is we also have an attendee interface which is available. Why? Because whenever there would be an event, there would be multiple attendees into that event, right? And as we need to pass the users array of the users who are attending that particular event, there is an interface for attendee also, wherein we need to pass this kind of properties through which it would be able to automatically create that particular thing. Okay, so now let us see how it will work. So for example, this is how the control is going to be rendered after I added the web part, right? I will walk you through the code in a bit time, but this is how it will happen. If you see that it is basically going and rendering all the events, and on click of hover, you have all the attributes which are showing, which is start date, end date, location, attendees, etc. And from here you would be able to go to different months, etc. You would be able to change different view of week view, month view, day view, etc. All of this. So all these features are by default available through which you would be able to do. what we are really interested is in how we can basically make an API call to SharePoint list and then convert into the event object which is required, which would basically be passed to the object to render, right? So that is what we will see. Now, first and foremost thing is that we need to have the required list which would be there. So for that, what I have created, I've created a demo list which is called calendar event data list, wherein we have some events which are created. Now, if you see here, there are two events and then there are multiple days event which is there, and based on what you were seeing that there were multiple events being displayed on particular date, because that same event is actually happening in different days, and it automatically takes care of it and renders it there. The required columns are title, start date, end date, location, category, if it is an online meeting, whether it is importance or not, and the attendees. That is the base column which would be required for an event. You can have your own custom list, your custom columns. If you don't have certain columns which is created as part of your use case, then you can just ignore it. Okay, now let me go to the code and see how it would work, right? So first and foremost thing, as what we generally do is when we create basically an SPFX based solution is we need to pass the context, because using this context we would be able to basically make any kind of API calls which we wanted to do, or we would know where the web part is getting rendered. So by default, first and foremost thing is I'm passing the context to the actual React control by using this .context property. So this is important. Then in the React control, another thing is that, as I told you, that what we need to do is we need to make sure that we are installing the targeted PNP React control library or npm package. Without that, the control won't be usable, which is already available in the documentation. So this has to be installed. To install that, you have to use the common function which is npm install and the library name, the package name. Once this is installed, and if you go to the React control, what you need to do is you need to make an import, which is basically this import, and all of this is what is followed, or what has been put in the documentation itself, wherein it says that you need to basically do install the library, then do this import, and then you can basically use this particular object to render the calendar control. Now in this example, there is an hard-coded event object which is getting created, but in our cases we are going to connect it with the SharePoint list, and we are going to use similar kind of event object and then pass it there. But what I did is I just copied this here from there, which is available, which is added here, and then we are passing the event object. Okay, so now our next thing is that we need to make sure that the event object is populated with the SharePoint list. So in this case, because it is easier to use PNP JS, I'm using PNP JS to basically make an API call. So here you will find some code related to initializing the SP object by using the SPFI function by passing the current property context. So once this is initialized and once this is available, then after that we would be able to use any methods and attributes which are available in this .sp object. Now what we have to do is whenever the component does mount, we need to make the API call and we need to get the data, right? So this is the function which does that, this .get event data. And if I go inside the event data, this is one line which is basically getting data from the calendar list which is there, right? For simplicity, I'm just using all the hard-coded column names and values and columns which we wanted to return, because that is what important for me to basically create the event object which is required for the calendar control to be passed. And then what we are doing is, once we got the item object, and then we are iterating through the item object, and then we are creating a mapped event object by basically pointing to a particular property to the object which would be required. So in here, if you see, ID against ID, title against title, start time against start time, location against location, category against category, importance, whether do we want to enable on hover property or not, and then the attendee objects. Okay, now in attendee, because it's going to be multiple attendees which would be there, we are expanding the attendee object, and from that expanding attendee object, what we want to do now for now is just get the title or name of the attendee which is available. So then we are passing the name. If you want, you can also pass the email address and other 3-4 properties which is available. After that, we are setting it in the set state method by passing that event object, and then what we are doing is that event object is basically being passed to the calendar control in the render method. Okay, and that is how the calendar control would know that okay, this is my event object, and through which I need to basically render all the events which we got it from the calendar control, sorry, which we got it from the SharePoint list, and then we are passing it to the calendar control. So to summarize, this was a quick walkthrough on how we can use PNP React Calendar Control, and more importantly, how we can basically connect it with SharePoint list to display real-time event data. So if you are building a custom SPFX solution where out-of-the-box calendar control web part is something which you won't be able to use, and you wanted to build a custom solution around that, like for example having a color-coded event or adding an on-click event method or creating your own forms within the calendar to create new events, you might want to give user a calendar functionality but also to customize it. So in that case, I think this calendar control is going to be really important, wherein we don't have to redevelop whole calendar functionality at least, but just to extend on top of what is available. Hope this video was helpful. If you like this video and wanted to see some other use case around this, feel free to let me in the comment. Till then, thank you. And if you liked it, please hit the subscribe button for similar kind of videos in my YouTube channel. Thank you.